Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Sheer, your AEC Tech Girl, and today we're diving into the latest updates in Autodesk Forma's February 2025 release. And trust me, there are some game-changing improvements you won't want to miss. From enhanced 3D modeling tools to improved collaboration and powerful analysis features. All right, let's break it all down and dive in. First up is the 3D section box. This highly requested feature lets you easily section your model, making it a breeze to view and work on specific areas. So here I have my site, and if you look down at the tools on the bottom right, you'll notice that there's now this camera options with section box added. So all I have to do is click to enable section box, and it creates a section box in my 3D site design. I can then hover over any of the sides and drag it to expand the section box and change it to whatever size I want it to be. If I want to use it over again, I could go and save this section box. I can name it whatever I want. We can then turn it on or off and pick a default section box from our saved section boxes. We can also show or hide the section box outline right here. Next is curved roads and rails. So now roads and rail designs can have adjustable corner radiuses, making infrastructure layouts much more accurate and realistic. And the best part is all of the roads and rails that you've already laid out or drawn in your different Forma designs have automatically been adjusted. So if we take a look at drawing a road, there is now two options here, smooth and tight. So let's take a look at smooth, where I can go ahead and draw my road. And as you can see, the curves are curving. And once I'm done, I can select it and adjust those radiuses. Let's take a look at drawing one that is tight. You can see the difference straight away with those different curves. But the same thing applies. I can adjust the radiuses of each vector. The third improvement I want to talk about, which is also really exciting, is site automation. Forma can now automate terrain modeling and site adjustments based on your building and site layout. Let's take a look at how to iterate our site designs. So at the top, there is a new site automation button. And when selecting this, you can select a previous site that you laid out. And you get all your options. You have the different layouts from empty to grid to honeycomb. Let's do grid. And you'll also get additional options for your grid settings that you can select here, from the grid width to the grid length. So we can go ahead and make some adjustments. And we can also edit the grid orientation. So simply select that and pick a new orientation, and we can see it adjust. We'll do that again. And if we're happy with that, we can then go on to the building types and switch between city blocks, linear buildings, mixed, or tower buildings. You can then change the variations and continue to adjust your grid width and grid length based off of the different inputs. Below, you can also adjust the story height, the floors, the building width, and the tower width. This is going to make it so much easier to do your different site designs. Now, the fourth improvement I want to talk about is all about the 3D sketching improvements, and it actually has a lot of sub-improvements within it, but it's all within 3D sketching. So the first thing we want to do is release our site. So once selecting your site, you can go ahead and click here to release it into zones. Then we can make adjustments to the individual buildings within our site. Let's go ahead and select one of our buildings. And the first thing I want to show you is the new tab functionality. Now, the tab functionality we'll also look at in a few different areas, but the first one is, for example, if I'm trying to move this building. Let's select a point here. And you'll also notice at the bottom of the screen, it already tells you that you can tab to toggle on vertical mode. So here you can see that if I'm moving the building around, I'm kind of moving it everywhere, no matter if it's in the same plane. But if I tab, it will only move it within that same plane. So you can see that here. You'll also notice when I am moving that there are guidelines that help me with more precise drawing. For example, if I were to tab and only move in a vertical direction, it will help me with guidelines in each direction that I want to move. Let's go ahead and release some of these buildings and switch them to 3D sketch. We'll have to delete our floors, but once selecting a building, you'll notice that we can now colorize these buildings. So let's do the same thing here. We'll need to convert to 3D sketch. In order to colorize, we do need to delete the floors. But once we do that, we can select our building and switch their colors. So this is really great for creating diagrammatic designs. Maybe you want to colorize based off of the type of building it is, different things like that. You can duplicate your proposal, remove the floors, and create these diagrams with the different colors. Next is the ability to hide surrounding buildings when we are editing our 3D sketch. So let's go ahead and select this building and edit in 3D sketch. Once I am in here, sometimes if I'm panning around, you'll notice that my surrounding buildings are kind of blocking my view, making it more difficult to edit this building. Well, now when I go to the display options, I have the option to hide surroundings. That gives me just my building, which is going to make it easier to make modifications. And you'll notice when I showed you that display that there is an H here. Remember, you can use keyboard shortcuts with Forma, so I can also toggle on or off those surrounding buildings using the H shortcut. Now let's take a look at the extruding improvements. So this has really been improved to help with extruding different parts of your building so that you can either remove or add very easily without having to switch. And let's take a look at some of that tab functionality with some of this modeling. So let's go ahead and create a little pitched roof on this building. And make some more changes. So you'll notice when I do my cuboid, it automatically will identify the plane as I'm hovering. But for example, I can also tab, and as you can see, it'll go to the perpendicular surface rather than the sloped surface. And then I can choose to either remove or extrude based off of that. There's also the ability to tab for a tapered extrusion. So you can see here it's extruding straight, or if I tab, we can create a tapered extrusion. Same thing here, or tab for a straight or tapered extrusion. And the last thing I want to mention is about setting the axis, which we saw a little bit in the site automation, but let's go ahead and see it in the 3D sketch mode. So we're going to create a new 3D sketch. I'm going to set it to 2D. If you right click anywhere, you'll be able to now set the axis. So here I can go ahead and set the axis just like that, and we'll be able to see that in that icon. And if I move to 3D, you can also see that. And now when I go up to Sketch, it snaps to that axis that I've set up. And those are the major 3D sketch improvements that I think is going to bring so much value to how you are modeling within Forma. Next, I want to talk about the Forma board improvements. So let's switch from site design to board. The first is that collaboration just got a major upgrade because Forma boards now integrate with Autodesk Docs, allowing you to add 3D models and Revit sheets directly within the board. So here at the top where you can add, you now have the option to add from Docs. So here I can select the project and go ahead and open it. Then once I have my project on my board, I can select this option to open and add a 3D view, which then gets added here. Or any sheets that have been published. So here we can select from a sheet and also add it to our board and continue to add as many views or sheets that we want to our Forma boards. Next is the new presentation mode. So here we can edit the presentation mode and either select frames to add to our presentation and switch between those and click play to be put into presentation mode and be able to go through and do a practice run of your presentation essentially. You can also right click and change some settings like which frame to start from and moving it or removing it. And this is going to really add a lot of options for you to present the different Forma designs relative to the analysis and to a Revit model. And lastly is the print and exporting directly from boards, making documentation a breeze. You can either select an entire frame and then right click or Control P to print, which will print that frame. Or you can even highlight and select certain portions of a frame and right click to print or Control P to only print a portion of a frame. And those are the board improvements. For our number 6 improvement, we will switch back to our site design. And Forma now separates libraries from contextual data. This is going to make it a lot easier to manage all of that information for your project. So here we now have our library, and we now have a separate option for our contextual data. This helps keep your model organized and improves efficiency when working with multiple design elements. And lastly, I did want to give a shout out to some new add-ins that have been added. So here, when you go to add your extension, two new ones that are pretty exciting is the Click LCA Generative Design add-in, as well as the Vizcab add-in. Take a look, play around with this, and let me know what you think of these two new add-ins. There are a few more improvements that I won't be showing, but I did want to mention. The first is better and faster editing of imports for smoother model refinement. The second is vector exports for improved document workflows. The third is all about the embodied carbon analysis enhancements for more accurate sustainability assessments. And lastly, the ability to have more granular analysis results for deeper insights into environmental performance. And that wraps up the top updates in Autodesk Forma's February 2025 release. These features make Forma more intuitive, collaborative, and powerful than ever before. I covered some of my favorite improvements, but there is so much more to check out. There were a total of 38 improvements, and I will put a link down below to the Forma webinar that went into even more detail. So which updates are you most excited about? Drop a comment down below and let's chat. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more AEC Tech content. Remember, stay empowered, stay inspired, and always challenge what is possible.